Hey, what's up guys? Gons here for the Face Like the Sun YouTube channel. A lot of news about Mars continues to take over the internet, and it's been part of this continual propaganda to focus on space objects, in particular this alleged planet Mars that is out there. And recently, there have been a few different things in the news about Mars. First off, there's this idea that Mars used to have an atmosphere, and it was stripped based on solar winds. And actually, this was announced last week, and I sat through most of the press conference that NASA held. A lot of it was just sort of the technical aspects of what they believe happened to Mars, and their conclusion was basically that it would be more difficult to terraform Mars than they first thought possible. On one occasion, and I wish I had collected the audio of this, but I don't have it, or I can't find it right now. Basically, they were asked about ancient extraterrestrial civilizations, or at least an existence of extraterrestrial life on Mars. And when they were asked about it, they literally just sidestepped it and said, what you're asking about is water. And to some extent, it's true, but they never actually answered the question. They believe that Mars was pretty much like an Earth-like planet in the past, and I think that's just another step into promoting this idea that there was an ancient civilization on Mars. So that being said, there's another story that really just came out, which is that one of Mars's moons is being pulled apart by tidal forces, new study finds. And according to NASA, again, the long, shallow grooves lining the surface of Phobos are likely early signs of the structural failure that will ultimately destroy this moon of Mars. Phobos is closer to its planet than any other moon in the solar system, and Mars's gravity is drawing the moon in about 6.6 feet every 100 years. And Phobos is strange because it's kind of a weird shape. And of course, they always use Greek mythological names for these planets and stuff, and moons and satellites. And in this occasion, Phobos is the personification of fear in Greek mythology. He's the offspring of Aphrodite and Ares, and he was known for accompanying Ares into battle along with the ancient war goddess Enyo, the goddess of discord, Eris, both sisters of Ares, and Phobos' twin brother Deimos, which is terror. So again, a lot of ancient mythological connections with the names, especially Phobos. And of course, those conspiracy analysts are well aware of the speculations made about the possibility of this satellite of Mars to be hollow. In an article that was published on Project Prove by Jeff Chandler, there was a write-up that went over some of the statements made by certain people that believe this moon, Phobos, is an artificial structure. Here's what the article states. Soviet Air Force Colonel Marina Popovich has gone on record stating that Phobos, one of the two Martian moons, is an artificial structure. Her sources also advise that it is hollow. The credentials of Marina Popovich are second to none. A PhD from the University of Leningrad and graduate of the Military Flight School, at the peak of her career, she set over 100 aviation records, of which 90 still stand unbroken. Her contacts on the subject stem from her former husband being the first man to rendezvous with another spacecraft in orbit during the Vostok 4 flight in August 1962. Phobos has itself always been considered a rather mysterious object, as has its smaller twin Deimos, which again, just so you guys know, in Greek mythology is the twin brother of Phobos and stands for terror. So we have terror and fear as the two moons of Mars. But continuing on here. Joseph Shklovsky, a member of the Soviet Academy of Science, calculated from the estimated density of the Martian atmosphere and the acceleration of Phobos that the moon must be hollow. Evidence for this arose in July 1988 when the Russians launched two unmanned planetary probes, Phobos 1 and Phobos 2. Phobos 1 was lost en route 2 months later, reportedly because of a radio command error. Phobos 2 was also lost under the most intriguing circumstances, but not before it had beamed back certain images and information from the planet Mars itself. Phobos 2 arrived safely at Mars in January 1989. It entered into orbit around Mars as a first step towards its ultimate goal, to transfer to an orbit that would make it fly almost in tandem with the Martian moonlet called Phobos, and explore the moon with equipment that included two packages of instruments to be placed on the surface of the moon Phobos. The mission was successful until Phobos 2 aligned itself with the Martian moon. Then, on March 28th, a Soviet Mission Control Center acknowledged sudden communication, quote, problems with the spacecraft. TASS, the official Soviet news agency, reported that, quote, Phobos 2 had failed to communicate with Earth as scheduled after completing an operation yesterday around the Martian moon Phobos. Scientists at Mission Control have been unable to establish radio contact. End quote. The probe revealed anomalies on the surface of Mars, heat radiation leakage in a perfect geometrical shape running parallel one to another directly along the equator and the face on Mars. Another anomaly was also found one of the last transmissions from Phobos 2. It was a photograph of a gigantic cylindrical object, a huge, approximately 20 kilometers long, 1.5 kilometers in diameter, cigar-shaped mothership that was photographed on the 25th of March 1989, hanging or packed next to the Martian moon Phobos by the Soviet unmanned probe Phobos. After the last frame was radio transmitted back to Earth, the probe mysteriously disappeared. According to the Russians, it was destroyed, possibly knocked out with an energy pulse beam. So what was it that collided or crashed into Phobos 2? Was the space probe shot out of space for seeing too much? What does the last secret frame show? Popovich was associated with the controversial frame being smuggled out of top secret files, and although they have not been publicly released, it is believed, however, that the frames have been shown to US and British officials. The cigar-shaped craft in the penultimate frame taken by Phobos 2 is apparently the object casting an oblong shadow on the surface of Mars in an earlier photo. In October 1989, Soviet scientists published a series of technical reports on the experiments Phobos 2 did manage to conduct. The report confirms that the spacecraft was spinning either because of a computer malfunction or because Phobos 2 was impacted by an unknown object shortly after contact was lost. In the latest effort to photograph Mars and its moons, the NASA Mars Observer was launched from Cape Canaveral, Florida in 1992 on a 337-day voyage to Mars. The Mars Observer initially was expected to arrive at Mars by 19th August of 1993 and enter a long elliptical orbit over the poles. In mid-November 1993, it was to begin its 2-year mapping of the surface of Mars. Then suddenly, on August 22, 1993, it was announced that NASA had lost contact with the spacecraft. Americans and the world mourned the loss of a valuable scientific tool for understanding Mars. Taxpayers wondered if there was a better way to spend their money than on expensive space probes that didn't work. A dark shield was going up on new information about Mars to the public at large. And of course, this is an older article, but it seems that now, with new information, allegedly, of Mars, there is more and more coming out about this planet that is supposedly going to be visited by humans in the very near future. And in fact, it was reported, and this was kind of an older story, but it was hitting the newswire again recently. MSNBC reported NASA looking for new astronauts in preparation for Mars mission. And again, they're looking for a one-way ticket to Mars. And again, the question is why? Is it just to explore this dead planet, allegedly, or is there something else going on? And of course, if you want to go really far down the rabbit trail, there's already people on Mars and have been for a very long time. In fact, there are some folks who suggest that Obama was on Mars as well in an old Project Pegasus. The rabbit trail is deep and wide, and some people even say Mars doesn't exist. So there you have it. That's some info update on Mars and what's going on. I really do think that there is a deeper agenda here behind all of this. And again, I'll point to the work of David Flynn if you have interest in the subject of Mars, especially from a biblical perspective of how all this might tie in together with Bible prophecy and ancient pre-Adamic history and even just antediluvian history. So there you have it. Let me know your thoughts, share links. Hope you guys have an awesome day. God bless.